On today's show, a not so fun Friday, again, having to talk about what we thought was going to be the biggest news was the new manager. Wrong. The new biggest news for the Padres is the selling of the team by the Seidler family. And today I'm being joined by Jake Garegnani of CBS 8 Sports to talk more about it, react to some of your first initial reactions to it, and a whole lot more. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network in the biz. As always, I am your host, Javier Reyes. I've been covering this team for nearly 6 years now, or more than 6 years. 6 years now, not just for this podcast, but various other outlets, including justbaseball.com, chief among them. Remember to go subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast from, and as well on the YouTube if you want to see my super cool background, because I'm outside Petco Park right now filming this episode. You could do that, subscribe, and leave some comments in the comment description below to have them answered potentially on the Monday mailbag show. But it is a not so fun Friday. That still counts as a fun Friday of sorts, which means I have a special guest. It is Jake Garegnani of CBS 8 Sports San Diego to help me unpack, because yesterday your boy was going through it. I said some things that maybe I regret, not in like they were bad things, but in a way that I was like, you know what? I think I was a little bit upset. So maybe I shouldn't trash everybody in the entire baseball landscape when it comes to different teams. But Jake Garegnani, my man, how are you doing on this lovely Friday?
Oh, it's a lot to take in, Javi. It's a lot to take in. You know, like you said, you thought Monday was going to be the exciting new era, the Craig Stammen era. Not that that goes away, but we didn't even make it a week before we had more crazy news. The drama wheel that is the San Diego Padres keeps rolling, and I think the biggest drama of all definitely hit yesterday morning. And my jaw was on the floor, like I think a lot of other people's jaw was on the floor. And I'll know we'll get into it, and we'll kind of break it all down, but the more and more I kind of sit on this and think about it, the more and more the signs were kind of there, right? And now the reality hits, and it's I don't know if it's tough yet. I don't know where it's all going, but there is a level of sadness no matter what happens, because, and again, we'll get into it, but because of Peter Seidler's vision, and obviously that kind of coming to a close, if this sale does eventually go through. But yeah, it was a shocking day yesterday, no doubt about that.
Man, it was tough. Like, what was your initial, like, no thinking? What was your kind of initial reaction to the news? Because I know mine was immediately like, oh, this stinks. I'm going to go get a beer. That was kind of my reaction. But what was yours?
I kind of felt lied to, and I'm not saying we were lied to, because I think plenty could have changed from February until now, November, like that. The reality of that, lawsuits, all that stuff, that definitely changes things. But, you know, I was out at spring training with the Padres, and I've posted this on my social media if people want to hear it for themselves. But we asked Eric Grupner, and the great Marty Caswell asked him straight up, and I asked Rob Manfred about the Padres, and every single signal was, look, John Seidler, the Padres, the Seidler family, their vision is to keep this team with the San Diego Padres for generations. It is a generational asset. Those were the exact words used. And I believed those words. And then we kind of had this season. The Padres, won 90 games, played well, made the postseason, had an opportunity at a run in October. Obviously, things didn't go well, but you felt like, all right, there's stability here again. Obviously, we all miss Peter and what he brought, but the Padres and John, they kind of got everything a little bit more stable once again, and we're ready to kind of run this thing back. And then you wake up to that news and you go, what the hell is all that? What the hell are we talking about? What have we been told for all this time? Again, without making instant reaction to not being the fly on the wall, I don't know what happened. Things definitely could have changed over that time, but you just felt like you were told one thing, and then all of a sudden the exploration of the sale is completely opposite of what we've been told.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to put it, man. Like, where it just felt like the aura was, I mean, remember, we have the Sheel Seidler lawsuit. Then it's like we have that funny picture going viral of John Seidler when it was announced he was the one going to be the main kind of person in charge, the face of it. And he's like, like cheering in the stands or whatever. And people got excited. And by the way, again, this is why the internet's so funny. All the Padres people I saw being like, see, this is a guy who looks like based off one photo of the man. I was like, all right, guys, that's enough. But there was so much last offseason. There were a lot of people being like Team Sheel, and a lot of people being like, no, she's over emphasizing her involvement in the team. There was just, it was all over the place. And some people being like, look, here's the one person beside their family, the daughter or whatever, that's like at a Dodgers game rooting for them. So people are like, see, we're under siege now. Like, all the reactions were all over the place. And this isn't going to quell those reactions whatsoever, I think, amongst Padres fans, because understandably, this is a team that they also, I think that it brings Craig Stammen back into the forefront. Like, this is a guy that we had heard about, Albert Pujols and Nick Hundley, even Carlos Hernandez, and all these different candidates, Ryan Flaherty, Ruben Niebla, and then you go with this unproven guy, and it makes some fans wonder, well, did we cheap out on a manager? And did we cheap out on a manager because we were going to sell? Again, I'm not saying what I agree with or not. The only thing that I do think I agree with is just the overall sentiment. Like Ryan Cohen, I talked about this on yesterday's show. Ryan Cohen on yesterday's thing, he said Peter talked all the time about leaving the team and his family for generations, and they disregarded his wish within 2 years of his tragic passing. It's pretty heartbreaking. It's hard to not really empathize with that and be like, you know what? This is unfortunate. It was just 2 years later and everything has changed. And that's why I got into my little morbid rant about baseball media loving to trash this team and ignoring that, well, maybe part of the reason things are falling apart is because the owner sadly passed away. But it opens so many different questions. It makes you wonder, are they just completely cooked in free agency? How long is such a thing going to take, right? There's just so many different, I think, avenues that you have to get in with this, as is with any other team. And I think that what's so fascinating about this situation is that there are oftentimes, people get excited sometimes when it gets announced that their team is going to be selling, right? Because they're like, oh, great. You look at the Mets fans. They're like, oh, wow, we like actually care about winning baseball games now. This is cool, right? Or any other, look at the Washington Commanders, right? If you want to use football, they sold their team and immediately made the semifinals, right? So there's sometimes some positivity to be gleaned from a new ownership change. It's possible that the Seidler family was like, all right, look, we can't just say we don't care until we start really figuring things out, and on top of the lawsuit from Sheel, and that maybe it's like in the best interest to give it to someone who really does care a lot more, maybe up to the level that Peter did. So there's just so many questions to get into. And I'm going to ask Jake his thoughts on some of the immediate ones that I imagine a lot of Padres fans are going to have in his take on the situation. And it's going to be a lot of fun because we like having fun, because it is Fun Friday after all. But first, folks, let me take a second to talk to you about one of our sponsors. That is our friends over at FanDuel. And with the NBA back, there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And just like that, everybody, we are back thriving and vibing despite it all here on the Locked On Padres podcast. Thank you for making Locked On Padres your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Jake, my man, let's get into it, right? And we're going to have some responses from yesterday's show that we're going to read and react to as well. But firstly, what is your initial take, vibe on what does this mean for the immediate future of the team, especially considering that's going to be free agency?
Yeah, it's hard to know. Like you mentioned, it's hard to guess what it'll mean for free agents. Everything that John Seidler said in the press release and then the letter he sent out to the fans said that it would be business as normal in this 2026 season. Take that for what you will, if you trust and believe what his words are. And I tend to do that. I really do think, and I kind of want to go back to what you said, because I want to double down on the fact that as much could have changed from February to November, that maybe John and Sheel and everyone said that, look, this is not what Peter had in mind. Us fighting over the control of the team. John's heart might not be in it the way Peter's was. And maybe they did do the honorable thing and say, look, the best thing we can do for Peter's vision is to give this team, to sell this team to somebody that shares that overall vision. And between us and lawsuits, and between if John's heart isn't quite into it, then the best thing we can do is sell this team to somebody whose heart is fully into it. So that could be an honorable thing if they stay to their word and find an owner who truly does believe that and truly does invest back into this team, then that could be a big thing. And that could be big for the Padre fans and the next good owner to come in here. So it's hard to know initially what the repercussions could be from this, but they said in that press release that they're going to pour everything they have into the 2026 season. And the 2026 season might be, the last one for a while, depending on how the collective bargaining agreement goes at the end of 2026. So I would hope, and I think that it's not going to have a massive impact on, let's say, free agents and stuff like that. I think players go where the money is and in a good situation. And the thing is, Javi, this isn't some team selling because they're a dumpster fire. This is a team that was second in attendance. This is a team that's made the playoffs 4 out of 6 years. This is the team that has a real shot at a deep October run. I think free agents look way more at that than the idea of like, oh, I don't know who the owner is going to be next. So I don't think it's going to have a monster impact in the immediate future. And I don't think we're going to know the impact of this sale if it does go through for a long time, Javi, because you got to get a new owner in, and then you got to get a few years down the line before you see how they do things. So is it a full sale? Is it a partial sale? There's just so many questions to be asked, and then that have to get answered to really know the impact of it. But as far as your question is the immediate future, I don't see it, being hard on free agents, or obviously it's not going to be hard on the manager. They hired a guy who, in my opinion, probably knew this was coming. It's probably why they hired Craig Stammen as a part of it is he was already there internally, saw everything going on. So I don't think it will have a monster impact right away.
Yeah, that's kind of where I lean towards right away, at least. Right. There is the possibility, which is why I talked about in yesterday's show. And I do share the sentiment with a lot of Padres fans because they've been following this team for a lot longer than me. Right. I've been following them lightly since 2015 and then fully since 2019. Right. And that's basically golden age of Padres. Before then, this is a team that wouldn't pay Chase Headley 3 years for 52 or whatever it was. Right. So I understand Padres fans, longtime ones, being like, oh my God, are we going to go back to that era? Right. But I like what you said. Usually when you hear stuff like this, it's the Angels thing. Right. Remember when the Angels, Art Moreno was like, yeah, I might look to sell. And it was like, just kidding. That tells me that maybe not an immediate awesome offer was on the table. I imagine people wanted to buy the Angels, but maybe knowing Art Moreno being a bad owner that he is, was like, well, I want like 15 times my value, like something crazy, right? Like I'm totally speculating, but that could at least explain away why that didn't go through. With the Padres, it's like you said, this has been a team that has been one of the cultural touchstones of baseball. That's the story of baseball since 2020, right? A lowly Padres team that all of a sudden proved everybody wrong and showed you the true problem in baseball is your Cleveland's and your Tampa Bay's. Because the Padres ain't a big sports market. Why are the White Sox not spending? The Padres can, so why can't they? Right? And with the big stars, and with occasionally beating the Dodgers, 2022 being the biggest example, right? And 4 out of the last 6 years in the playoffs, attendance still in the top 5, right? And I think another thing worth pointing out is in terms of the major sports. I got a comment about this. Major sports. I know they have the San Diego FC, but for the most part, it's Padre land in San Diego. Like, you don't have the Chargers. You don't have a basketball team. Is it technically Clippers? Sure. But everybody knows, it's a Laker town and all that stuff for the most part, right? So I just think that there are good, exciting reasons for someone to come in who might be like, hey, I would love to be a part of this. And I'd like to pump even more into this team and really make them a thing and continue what Peter started, right? That's totally, totally possible. But it's still a lot of questions, man. Like, this process could take a long time. Like, we might not find out until next year in a lot of ways.
Yeah, somebody that would come in is buying a jewel of an asset. This is not a diamond in the rough. This is a shining jewel. And so if you're going to spend what is reportedly $2.5 billion on the San Diego Padres, you're not going to buy it and let it sit. You're not going to buy it and let it rot. You're going to invest into it. It's already making money, at least from the sense of people showing up, going to the game. So you're not going to change that. The other thing that I said on CBS 8 a lot yesterday was a lot of these really bad owners in sports, Javi, have been in that position for a really long time. And they've been able to sit there and let their teams do that and collect their paychecks. There are anomalies and outliers, of course, but I can't think of too many owners who have spent billions and billions on dollars of recent teams, given the value of sports franchises these days, and not invested in it. They're just too big of investments these days. And not saying they weren't back when these guys bought the teams way back when. But the Colorado Rockies and the Rays and the past before the Rays were sold, like those owners could sit there and just collect their money and not have to try, and nobody's forcing them out. But I think this day and age, you really don't see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only hope will be, with some of these other teams, is it always baseball because of their revenue sharing, because of all that stuff with an upcoming CBA? It's certainly possible, but I like the optimistic slant. Frankly, this is why I could have used you yesterday as I was going through it, right? To be like, hey, if you're going to buy the team, be like the Phoenix Suns owner. Could it be a disaster in terms of winning? Sure. They could be like, all right, we're trading Tatis and I want 4 prospects and then we're trading for Mike Trout, whatever. Like something crazy could happen like that. I don't know. I was trying to think of the baseball equivalent to whatever the heck the Suns did after Ishbia bought them, but I couldn't at the moment. You could have that take place, but at least that tells you the number one thing in sports, man. I don't care if the owner doesn't know ball. What I care about is that they're not just sitting in the background, laying away. Jerry Reinsdorf, right? I looked into number 3 in 1984, and that's made me quite literally my entire fortune is based off that, and I do nothing aside from that. There's going to be owners out there who might be like, you know what? I want to beat the Dodgers. You know what I mean? I want to be a part of this thing. And I don't have to compete with anybody else. San Diego is mine, right? Like I don't have to worry about any of that sort of thing. So it's possible. It's certainly possible. But let's just say, Jake, the reactions were quite mixed. At least on my video.
Yes, they were.
It's certainly online, and we got to talk about some of them, right? A lot of crash outs that we got, right?
Rightfully so. That's fair. I'm not going to tell people how to be handling their emotions in a moment like this.
and don't get me wrong, you did get some balanced ones, right? Like my man Kevin Crotty and 9475 said lots and lots to be determined, but on the surface, it's a group that has clearly not shown an interest in owning the team since Peter's passing to someone else. I think this could be a good thing for fans. I also think it could be a good thing for fans. And I'm not even trying to trash John Seidler and company. Remember that this is a family that kind of originated from Dodgerland, right? So this was mostly Peter's thing. And by the way, when Peter came in, he was from Dodgerland. People, as someone who followed the Padres lightly, people were like, okay, I don't know, man. I don't know. And look what happened. So it's totally possible that there isn't too much nefariousness here. And they're just saying, I don't want to own any sports team. You know what I mean? Let alone the Padres. I'm from LA. So let me pass it on to somebody who really does care about this team and can seize the momentum. But then there's the other way of it where we look at the lawsuit, we look at some of the lack of spending recently, and we say, this is, they never cared in the first place. And this is going to be a little bit tough, right? You can kind of go, it's just one of those things. I love saying this a lot. No opinion on this will receive any dissent from me. If you are, it's over. It was done. We should have appreciated this period more. Javi, you should have been grateful that we made the playoffs. Who cares if we gave up Leo to DeVries, right? Or it could be someone that's like, no big deal, man. We still got Preller. We'll figure it out in the long run. I'm kind of open to every sort of reaction to the thing. And there's more reactions that some of you guys had, which we're going to talk about for sure, because that's what we do on Fun Friday. We have fun. That's what we do. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, the number one sports podcast network. Officially, it's true. Go look it up. It's real. I never lie on this show. I've never once lied. Not once. Except for what I said where I was during a show, which was like 3 years ago. But other than that, Jake Garegnani here of CBS 8 Sports San Diego. Let's react to a few more of the responses that we got on the show. A lot of absurd Dodger fans, as usual. We might get into some of those because I want you to just see, you know what I mean? I want you to be part of the rage that I feel towards these people. But at M85619 says, if the Seidler family wants to move on, let them. Peter's legacy will still live on past their ownership tenure. That is like the most sentimental, sweet way of looking at this, is that we'll never forget, man. We'll never forget no matter what happens. And honestly, part of me is like, hey, if it goes bad after this, well, we tried. And I think that that's more than what a lot of organizations in baseball can say.
Well, that person is 1,000% right. Right. No matter what happens moving forward, this period of Padres baseball will forever live in lore. I mean, this man not only completely changed the course of this franchise for the time that he was with it, but he completely changed the culture of the city of San Diego sports scene. I mean, tenfold. It was incredible what he did, and he put this team on a trajectory that I think it's going to be hard to pull it down from. And to your point, if if we play Doomsday and it does get pulled down and it's some bad owner, then everyone will cherish the Peter Seidler years, and those will always be remembered. And if you find a owner like they say they're going to, and they build on this, then it will be the launching pad that always was Peter Seidler, who changed everything. So that person's 1,000% correct in the fact that we will never forget this period, and of course never forget what Peter did for the Padres.
It's like you said, like with all these contracts, you've got some star players, not just in Manny, but in Tatis. You've got a young one in Jackson Merrill. You've got a GM who's a star in his own way. Like just the sense of, oh, people know this guy and they are writing stories on him in The Athletic about how the only time of peace that he has is when he plays basketball and he just shows up in shorts and then he trades like every prospect for play. Like one of the weirdest, but like that's a character like that. People look, we can debate whether or not the trades have been right, whether or not Preller should have been more reserved. But the bottom line is it has been exciting following this team. And sometimes that's how you get fans. Even if it's like, oh, wait, we don't win much more games than those teams who like play a little bit smarter, but also who cares? Remember when we traded for Juan Soto? That was the coolest day of my life. Like that matters, having this rock star GM who is not afraid and a good identifier of talent. So I absolutely see that. But let's get into some crash shouts. First one from @KC, KAYC_Ebson. Initial reaction: shameful, pitiful, and pure disgust. Just spitting on their dead brother's legacy for pure greed. Bye. I pray for an owner who truly loves the city, are grateful for this fan base, and will show their appreciation by spending on quality players and investing in a staff that's skilled, competitive, and are good people with a true love of the game. I detected in some of the Padres' reactions, by the way, to this is understandably the Chargers, right? Like that is a team that also had a pretty, now they weren't, the Green Bay Packers. They weren't the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Eagles, right? They didn't have that level of attendance, but they had such a solid core of a fan base, and they had a lot of stars. That was not a team that you were like, oh God, like what do they even have? Like one good receiver? No, they had Phillip Rivers, and they made the playoffs multiple times. And if not for Marlon McCree, maybe they make the Super Bowl, despite the fact that I was told that Tom Brady was never not clutch in his entire career, right? All those sort of things come together, and then it's like, oh, and then they move them to LA as the second team to move to LA, which is also not a football town. So I understand the like PTSD from Padres fans who also might have been Chargers fans being like, well, that team had a lot of good momentum. We weren't the Jets. We were actually like a pretty competitive team most years. So I understand that. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No, yeah, of course there's PTSD there. You had a team that was completely loved, ripped out of this city and moved away. I would like to dump a little bit of cold water on this idea of relocation though, because I know it's been brought up. I think, Sheel brought it up at one point, and Eric Grupman was asked about it, and it has come up. But I think when you look at the reality of relocation, there's not too much to worry about. Like the Padres lease at Petco Park runs through 2033. This team is second in attendance. Everything about what the Padres are doing is just working, and it's a perfect fit in this city. The idea of somebody coming in to buy a really, really good product to move it somewhere where you're not guaranteed the same success makes really zero logical sense. So I think the idea of relocation doesn't check out whatsoever. It is interesting, Javi, and we talked a little bit before we started the podcast about, Sheel and what she said in that lawsuit, and how, a lot of that seems to be coming a little more to light when she said, hey, they want to sell the team. They may want to relocate the team. And so
like 1 year after, it's not like she said this 7 years ago,
Yeah, I think a lot of people kind of brushed that off, possibly saying she didn't have a lot of grounds to stand on, but now you see the reality of it. And nobody makes moves just for the good of their heart in situations like this. So I do believe there's obviously a massive monetary motivation by the Seidler family to do this. You just hope they stay true to their word and they find an owner that shares the right vision.
Absolutely bad. Another crash out from one of my longtime listeners, Phoenix at 927, and this is a big one. I am hoping that only one side of the lawsuit wants to sell the team, and that this is a valuation and co-owner search rather than a full-on crash out, he says, which is pretty funny, ironically. That being said, the family poured everything into winning World Series, and then $1 billion team simply bought their World Series in the Dodgers. I know that you say the Padres choked, but MLB and the media literally did everything they could to ensure that the Dodgers' $1 billion offseason was given a World Series title. You can't convince me the Dodgers did not have juiced balls and the Padres had dead balls at Game 5, 2024, blah, blah, blah. So if they want to sell, I get it. All you want to do is win, and the Dodgers get to buy their championship instead. I love this, Ash. I love you so much, but I will push back on the dead ball stuff and all that stuff. I really do think that there are a lot of things I will complain about with the Dodgers, but that team really is good. The only I give their fans more crap. Or like, how many years were they telling us built not bought, Jake? How often did they
Oh
do that?
yeah, I
And by the
mean,
way, used to be true, 100 million gajillion percent true. But now I look at your team, and every single face of that team is not a player that was in your farm system, or even one that you traded for before they got famous. So that I will push against. But look, again, the frustration. Like, I think the Shield thing is just so massive in this. And when it happened last year, right, in the midst of chasing after Roki Sasaki, right, like, I get it. I get a lot of people being like, I want to take her side more now. I understand people who are taking that position, and we'll have to see. But I also like what you said about the relocation thing. Granted, I will push back only like 1% and say I want to just speak for fans who are like, hey man, the Oakland A's were a big franchise, and then that dude trashed them for 25 years, right? And then got them relocated. And you might be wondering, well, baseball's not gonna. Well, baseball seems totally content with having let that happen and then playing in a minor league stadium. That being said, totally think this is a completely different situation because it hasn't been 25 years of sabotaging a team. It has been 10 years or so of increasing the team's value. And with some of these contracts with Tatis, I'm just like, why would they burn it down? And heck, if they did trade Tatis for what it's worth, I think that AJ Preller would get a humongous haul in return. I just think that he's their identity, so they're not doing that. But overall, guys, I understand the complaints. I do want to raise this last one, though. This is from a hater, but at Mr. Belinsky 1009 says, you failed to mention that they had to take out a $50 million loan to cover payroll, $50 million loan from minority owner. Seidler doesn't have the money to keep the team. Peter signed awful contracts, though the TV deal was being pulled. He knew he was dying and went for it knowing he wasn't going to be the one holding the bag. I don't even know where to start with that. I think that it's really unfair. First of all, I mean, not to get too political, but like, I just don't think it's possible for rich people to go broke. But I think more importantly is this. They're not the only team to ever get a loan, right? And guess what? The Dodgers need a loan. Oh, well, that's because we had ownership trouble. Well, so do we, right? So I think that it is unfair to act like this is the be all and end all, gloom and doom. There's a lot of people who work for this team, a lot of financials involved. And by the way, reporting about Peter Seidler's death was that it was unexpected, right? And that's the only thing that we can go off of. So RIP to a legend. But Jake, any thoughts on this sort of issue that is being brought up?
I think there's a few truths to what that person's saying in a sense of like, yes,
Absolutely.
the team did take a loan. A lot of Major League Baseball teams take loans, but that was because they were going for it. The idea of this frustrates me when I think people say that, oh, Peter spent all this money because he knew he was going to pass away and he wasn't going to be having to deal with it. If anyone, and I assume this person, actually, I can pretty much say with confidence, had never talked or known Peter Seidler.
Yeah.
If anyone who ever has talked or known Peter Seidler, his entire outlook on life was to set up his family and his love for his children, and this idea that, oh, he spent a bunch of money because he knew he was going to die and leave all this stuff. Like, that's just such a terrible way to look at it. And it's just not true whatsoever. Peter Seidler said what he always said, and that he wanted to do everything he could to get a championship. Were there a couple of contracts in there that you could look back on and go, oh yeah, maybe we don't sign Xander Bogaerts to that deal? Yeah, but that happens all over Major League Baseball to all sorts of teams. I just this idea that the Padres are in financial ruins and that they're completely hosed, like, it's not true. And maybe the divide amongst the Seidler family is causing it to be difficult to financially afford in the moment. So that part could be true. But I'm just saying, like, the overall idea that Peter did all these contracts and then was like, oh, this is it. I know I'm not going to be here anymore. That's a complete lie. And it's a shameful take.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that there is I think maybe there's a difference between he was like, I'm not going to be here and I'm going to pass on versus like, hey man, I'm aggressive as heck and I'm living in the moment right now. And I'd be like,
Yeah.
I don't care about like, I mean, I think he didn't care about necessarily the future because he just wanted to win so badly. Not necessarily because he knew what was going to happen, right? And again, it conflates with what we know about him and wanting this to be a family-owned thing for generations, right? So again, I find that ridiculous. But we're going to end on a more fun, ridiculous comment from at John Barry 5036. Tatis was Superman before 2022. Then suddenly all we find so that suddenly we all found out why. Lucky guy signing his extension the year before. Max Muncy makes almost half as much, but has better OPS, on base percentage, and slugging than Tatis since 2022. This is what I love about the Dodgers fans, right? I don't know why you're commenting about how you think Max Muncy is a better player than Tatis. If you don't mind, before we close out today, I would like to destroy this person, just so you know that in terms of wins above replacement, what takes into account the stats that you failed to mention in your comment. Max Muncy was, let's see here. He was, what the heck? How many wins above replacement did he have this year? Looks like he had about 2.9, it looks like. So what does that tell you? It means that Max Muncy is not a very good defensive player, while Tatis was top 10 in wins above replacement, right? So this is a comment that I imagine you've seen a lot about the Tatis cheating thing. Aside from the fact that there's no Major League Baseball GM that would take Max Muncy over Fernando Tatis Jr. because of the upside, because of his batted ball data, still being a 130 or so WRC plus guy. By the way, Muncy had a 137 in 2025. And also with electric defense, he just won a second platinum glove, which is freaking crazy, by the way. Like, this guy might just be becoming like an Andrew Jones type. The second thing that I want to leave off with is this one more time, because I love bringing it up. There are a litany of players who started their careers on freaking fire, and then they fell off a little bit. Evan Longoria, Andrew Jones, who I just mentioned, right? So I think the implication that Tatis is that those beginning years were just that. No, I think that it's also, we've seen that pitchers pitch him differently. They throw high and inside a lot more. They throw on top of the strike zone a lot more. And Arise being in front of him made it so it was difficult for him to get the right pitches to hit, because pitchers weren't afraid to throw to Arise as much. So that's what I have to deal with sometimes, Jake. You know, you just have to deal with people who,
I hear
crazy.
It all too, brother. I hang in the same realm as you in that digital world, and I hear it all as well. But yeah, I'll take Fernando 100 times out of 100 over Max Muncy. And I think every GM would, like you mentioned. Yeah,
they'd be like, man, I hope he gets back to what he is. But yeah, I'll take him over Max Muncy. And frankly, I'd take him over basically every player on the Dodgers right now, except for Shohei Ohtani. He's better individually than all the players that they have outside Shohei Ohtani. And maybe you could argue Freddie Freeman, especially because of positional premiums. You could say, like, it's very hard to find a first baseman that's going to do that type of output versus a outfielder. You could find a little bit more. Other than that, though, like, enough. But Jake, any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the people before we log off and hopefully just have a weekend of pretending that we do not see it?
My final thoughts would be that I hear you. I understand you. I get your emotion, your frustration, your sadness. All of that is fair to have. And I think, unfortunately, we will have no answers for a long time. And you got to let a lot of this play out, but be in your emotions. It's okay to be in your emotions. This means a lot to a lot of us, this franchise. Hopefully ownership realizes that, but be in your emotions. It's quite all right.
Absolutely, man. Spend your weekend, look at your fantasy team, enjoy some football, pretend that baseball isn't real. I do it all the time, right? Every time the Padres lose, I'm like, I don't like baseball anyway. You know what I mean? It's a terrible sport, right? You could do that, but that about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. I imagine we'll be talking about this as the rest of the offseason goes along, as well as some free agency stuff. But in terms of things to look forward to, leave comments in the comment description below on any video, but especially this one. Give me your thoughts on the Seidler family. Give me your thoughts on Craig Stammen, free agency stuff, and I will answer them on Monday and throughout the rest of the week. We're going to be talking about the depth players in review of this past year. We're going to talk about the trade deadline from this past year. And I don't think that had anything to do with the ownership potentially selling, but I'm going to pretend, at least for the first 5 minutes of the video, that it did. So look forward to that. We're going to be reviewing, in retrospect, the deadline, best moments of 2025, worst moments of 2025 also coming up. There might be a new addition to the worst moments of 2025, man, let me tell you, added on. But everybody go check out Jake over at CBS 8 San Diego, all of his fine work over there. And until next time, stay safe. And of course, stay faithful, my very faithful homies. Take care.